I got in a fight the other day on a first date. I know you're not supposed to do that. You're not even supposed to argue with women. But I did. And I fell short, I think, a little bit. But I do strive to practice radical self-respect every day. It's what I aim for. It's the ideal I strive for. Sometimes I fall short. This may be an example of that, although I think I was also right in some ways too. And I want to get into this story because I noticed people on this channel, they like my stories the best. My real life stories of what's happened to me in the dating world, or what I've let happen to me, I could also say too. But the reviews reflect that. And so here's another real story of something that has absolutely happened. Now, this is Radical Self-Respect with Jared Mello. For those of you who do not know, I normally make videos about, as you would guess, practicing radical self-respect, dating, relationships, mental health, supplements, and sometimes a current events video too. But if that sounds interesting, please do subscribe. And if you like the video, please do remember to like it. And maybe share my content with others that you think might benefit. And thank you very much to everyone who's been liking, commenting, and subscribing. It's been great to have you. But jumping right in, I got in a squabble the other day on a first date. And the woman was 10 years younger than me. My spidey sense was up a little bit before the thing even happened that she might be slightly immature. But I went out anyway, and I did it. And we were drinking, and that certainly contributes to the story. But it's my own fault that I was drinking, so I have to take responsibility for that. I can't blame that as, I was drinking, so it doesn't matter. I was like, no, I chose to drink, so everything that happens after that is on me too. So we were out at a bar, we were drinking, we were having a grand old time for a long while. And then there was this gay guy and a woman at a restaurant in Philly. And they wanted to go dance with her. And I told her to go over there and do it. I was like, yeah, go on, go dance with her, go have some fun. I went over there as well, but I wasn't really feeling their energy. And so I went back to where I was. And, 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, 15 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by. And I'm starting to get annoyed because she's still over there dancing with them. And I'm like, I throw some dirty looks in their direction. And the other girl notices it, but not the girl I'm with, of course. And I go to walk out and leave. I was going to just roast her and just leave her there because I feel like if you come out on a date with me, spend some time with me. And I have no problems, like, you hang out with another crowd for 5 minutes, fine. A little bit, fine. But when you notice I'm not going to be there, and you still stay there, you still stay with them, it's like, what the F? And so I walk out the door to leave. And I look around, and I notice she's finally looking for me now that I've left. And this is where I may have made a mistake. I went back in to talk to her. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have done that. I should have just kept on walking and kept on rolling because I thought that was disrespectful. And then I start talking to her about it. And she has no consideration for my thoughts and feelings in this scenario at all. She goes, well, they were just fun, and I'm going to go where the fun is. I'm going to go where the dopamine is. And if that's not you, then I'm not going to spend time with you. And I'm like, and previously in the evening, we had a little talk about the bill. I never ask a woman to pay, mind you. I always just assume I'm going to pay. And she did a good thing and then followed it up with a negative thing. She goes, I'll split the bill with you half. And I said, no, that's not necessary. I always get the bill. And then she said, before I could even say that though, she goes, you should say no. As in, I should tell her, no, I don't need her money. And it's like, you said something good there, and then you followed it up with a disingenuous remark. And so I didn't really like that very much. I always assume I'm going to pay. But for her to throw that extra remark in there, that was kind of annoying. But, so I was telling her, like, hey, I came out here, we're spending a lot of money on drinks and whatever. And yeah, I did volunteer to do that, but it's like, you come out with me, this is the first date, I just expect you to spend time with me. Especially when I wasn't coming over there either. I kind of just wasn't feeling the energy, and so I didn't. And I tried to say to her, well, if the roles were reversed, and I went somewhere and you didn't like the other person's energy and you stayed where you were. It's like, you really think you wouldn't have liked it? You really think that you would have been fine with me chilling somewhere else? Of course she wouldn't have been fine. But she couldn't put herself in my shoes like that. She just said I was being ridiculous, that I was just being silly, I was being jelly, as she called it. And it's like, I don't really think so. I think you come out with me, you spend time with me. And I said, if you want to go spend time with them, by all means, go spend time. I'm out. I'm going to go. And she got all annoyed about it. And then the evening was weird after that, because then she invited me back to her place, which I wasn't expecting. And there was no hanky-panky or anything. But she wanted to actually come on my show here and do an interview. And we actually did do one. We recorded about 45 minutes to an hour of a kind of a drunken conversation that didn't really go too terribly. And at the end, though, we started to fight again about this very same situation. Unfortunately, my phone was dead by that point, so it didn't pick up that last few minutes of the argument, because I would have loved, actually, to put that up here and to show you all this is a real-life argument / fight of what happens out there in the real world. She was just saying, yep, you're jealous, you're selfish, you're this, you're that, and I should have just been okay with no matter what she did. And I was like, I have a boundary. I'm going to have my boundary. I feel like you come out with me, we don't even really know each other, and you're going to spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes hanging out, dancing with someone else, and I'm not even over there too. I just thought that was ridiculous, and she couldn't see my point at all. And I was like, the only thing I said to her was, maybe instead of giving dirty looks, I could have came over there and said, hey, time to go. Maybe. But I was hoping not to cause a scene. I was hoping not to bring attention to it, that, hey, why don't you come back and hang out with me? But that's why I think my initial response was correct, to just walk out, because if that's where she really wanted to be, if she'd rather spend time with them than me, then so be it. I gotta walk. But I didn't do that. I walked, but then I came back. And maybe if I wasn't drinking, I would have just kept on going. But instead, I engaged the argument. And there's no reason to engage these kinds of arguments like this when we realize they can't put themselves in our shoes. They're not going to be able to understand our point of view. She couldn't understand my point of view at all. And if anything, I wasn't being gaslighting proof enough. It shouldn't have mattered to me that she wasn't understanding my point of view. My point of view should be strong enough. And once I understood that she wasn't going to try to put herself in my shoes at all and understand my thoughts and feelings, that should have been the end of the discussion, and I should have just bounced. But again, instead, I was drinking, my emotional control was a little bit lower, so I engaged, and I wanted to be right. I wanted to get her to see my side. And I shouldn't have needed that. I shouldn't have needed her to see my side. It should have been enough that was my thoughts, that was my boundaries. That's it. That's all that matters. And at that point, it's the old comply or goodbye. Either she's going to understand the way I feel and respect my boundaries, or she's not. And she chose the latter, to not respect them, and so that should have been it. But this was a real life story here of exactly what can happen on a date. Now granted, alcohol infused a little bit, sure, but to me, and I told her this at the end of the night, I would never go out with you. I would never think about a relationship with you. And she kind of gave hints throughout the night that all she really wanted to do was have fun and get laid anyway. And I still couldn't get over it enough to do it. Because I guess she invited me back and she did the old, we're not going to sleep together thing. But depending on who you ask, that's really just something that means that she was thinking about sleeping with me anyway. And if I wasn't so annoyed at her, maybe I would have. Maybe it would have worked out that way. But I couldn't even get past it. I was angry. I was annoyed that I couldn't get her to see my side. But like I said before, it's not my responsibility to get her to see my side. It should have just been that. So she gave me all these hints about it. that she's not looking for anything serious, and I wasn't really either. And so that was fine, but like, if you're going to disrespect me that badly, you're going to be that, what's the word they call it? Not narcissistic, but solipsistic. That's what she was being, solipsistic. You shouldn't even surround yourself with that. There's nothing you can do with someone like that, even in a friends with benefits type situation. If they're going to be that solipsistic, that selfish, we don't need that in our lives at all. And the only redeeming thing she did through the night, at the very end, was she paid for my lift back over the bridge because my phone was dead and I couldn't do it. So I'll give her credit for that, where credit's due. But throughout that, though, it just didn't go well. And I proceeded to talk to the Lyft driver, and this is around like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. at this point, and I tell him the story. And he mentioned the word solipsistic too, and I was like, this guy sounds like he's a red pill aware fella. And that's the other thing she was calling me. I'm very intense. Very intense. And you gotta watch out when women say that, intense. When a woman says intense like that, what it usually means is they don't like hearing our boundary. They don't feel like having to respect our boundary. So instead, they're going to shame us and say something like, "You're intense. You're so serious. You ought to lighten up a little bit." And it's like, those are all shaming tactics to guilt and shame us for having a boundary. And so the right thing is, I should have just walked out and not engaged in the argument discussion, but I didn't. But I have not reached out to her since. She actually reached out to me the next day and asked me if I was going to post our interview together, to which I'm not going to because I don't think it was good. But if the part that I recorded was still there, the fight that we had on camera, I would have certainly put that up because that would have been great entertainment. And yeah, maybe you would have seen another side of me. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I have defects. People say things about me, so I'm certainly no saint. But that was the scenario. I'm not going to post that video, but I also don't plan on ever talking to her again because I don't need that in my life. I don't need that kind of solipsistic person, selfish person, narcissistic person, like someone who can't even see my side. They can't even see it. And once I understood that she couldn't see it, that should have been the end and I should have just left. But I didn't. So that's on me. But that's my story of my first date fight argument the other night. Let me know what you think about that fight. Did I do the right thing? Was I in the wrong? Was I being ridiculous? Was I being intense or too serious like she was saying to me? Let me know. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts. So with that, thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.